So we have uh, a dozen people. Thank you all for coming. This is our sixth session. I think it's going pretty well, and it's kind of loaded with a lot of useful information. Um, Today, I just want to open with the statement I found from Bertold Brecht, who said, "The chief aim of science is not to open the door to unlimited wisdom, but to how did he say? Let me just double check. Sorry. Uh, the chief aim of science is not to open a door to infinite wisdom, but to set a limit to infinite error." So,
yeah, I like that.
Me too. So for today, I would like to see if we can focus a little bit on talking about how do we define this. What does failure mean? What does success mean? Because obviously, as I think Brian mentioned last time, let me just admit some guests. Obviously, these AI agents can offer endless uh, code and content, and they never get tired. Time is not an issue for AI. There is no organic or biological limit to their patience, and there's no saturation point. So I find it's a slippery slope, at least in my experience. You start getting into it, and it keeps pulling you more and more into more and more complex, more and more bloat, more and more all kinds of fantastic ideas. So I think we here, the group here, the roundtable, need to discuss how do we deal with that. What we have here, in my opinion, we have a mix of, and I'm not talking about a mix of people, but a mix of within a single person. There's a little bit of scientist in everyone here. There's a little bit of engineer, a little bit of craft person, and some artist as well. Artistry. So these three components play depending on who you talk to or what time of day I am at. I'm primarily a scientist by my vocation, but I also like engineering. And I'm also learning the beauty of the craft and a little bit of artistry. So we have all of these things presented to us by the agents because, as Laurie published the article last week where he talked about how we have this propensity to seek patterns, and this is our innate biological feature, how we survive. But then we also have this unconscious bias towards injecting agency into or intent into events that happen to us. And this is also slippery slope, I believe, that we think that anything happens to us is for a good reason, that it's something has a meaning to our life. And as a scientist, I have learned to kind of be a bit skeptical. I mean, the typical example that I can give for millennia now, people have believed that sun is moving across the sky, and it was a undeniable, obvious fact, and nobody can deny that. So it took a little bit of circumspect and skeptical approach to say, wait a minute, maybe this is not how things are. And people poking around and turning every stone and somehow got into this idea. Actually, it's the earth that's moving. And it was extremely counterintuitive to everyone. And even to this day, we have people who believe the earth is flat and the sun is moving, and now they're confused. Where does the sun go at night? It was a burning question. But to come back to the how we use AI, especially in software development and engineering, I think we need to abstain from giving it, or at least that's my opinion, giving some intention and believing that they intend to make things good. I don't think that's the case. They just have this amazing ability to produce a lot of interesting content, a lot of interesting patterns in the code. And I think it's our job to create the bar, to put the foot down and say, okay, this is my definition of failure. This is my definition of success. And can we work within these bounds and not hallucinate and go over and daydream and fantasize and add all kinds of things. So I'm kind of opening the floor here. If anyone has any ideas, how would we go about that? This is very, very loose, open discussion. I'm not expecting any solutions today, of course, but how do we, how do we put limits and constraints to the systems that we are building using those agents, and not paint ourselves in the corner or shoot ourselves in the foot? Anyone has any comments or suggestions? We have Laurie. Please go ahead.
Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. I'm Laurie. It's nice to see everyone again. For me, it's better. It's Friday night, so end of the work week. But I am in fact still working, so multitasking a bit. So this what Alex is talking about. I've also noticed since AI, since ChatGPT went public, probably. And Alex's question about how do we protect against AI that's over enthusiastic, sees connections in many things, and tells it's storytelling, not always solving a problem. And I did prep for the meeting, so there are 3 topics that I can propose, or not propose, you can talk about. First one is guardrails that you add into your AI. Then how to detect when the AI is confabulated, when it's, what is your smell test for AI? How do you get to a point when reading this fluent prose to have that alarm bell in your head go off to think, to realize this doesn't make sense. How do you improve that? And then the third one, I would like to propose maybe that we talk about it in another meeting, but for me, real productivity is engineering, Alex, like you said, to solve problems with AI. We're all technical, but we are creatives and we are builders. And there's some way to have to define our failure and successes, as you also, as we've talked about. So our manifesto is craftsmanship. And craftsmanship for me is about the human shapes the context, not just your AI prompt is a level behind it. It's the human. The AI prompt can be written extremely well, and then you will have much better output, less confabulations, less seeing patterns that's not there. Then that will in turn lead to less confirmation bias or believing what you read. And what you can use for craftsmanship in AI to shape the context is through, for lack of a better term, context engineering. Previously it was called prompt engineering, but as you all know now, the more context is available with a very in-depth explanation about what it's about, the AI will perform better. To just summarize, guardrails being put in place to force the AI to not execute a tool in agentic AI, or to not do this because it's dangerous or that. How do we define that? Then how do we define when AI is doing storytelling and not problem solving? When it thinks it has an insight and it outputs the language to you, how do you improve your smell test? What would be the best litmus test for that? And then with context engineering, bridging the gap between raw AI, vanilla AI versus productive, honest AIs. So that is what I would like to, the 3 topics. So if anyone has any questions or would like to talk, let's go in.
Thanks, Laurie. So when you say honest AI, that's a very intriguing proposition. Sometimes I hear that like I'm not doing that, but I hear that people like to pit various AI, shall we say, platforms or agents against each other. I think Uncle Bob, Robert Martin, was talking a lot these days about um, using cloud code and codecs, and then pitting them against each other and getting them to review each other's work. I don't know whether that's, you would consider that honesty or not. But let's hear what Ludger have to
Yeah.
say.
Thank you, Laurie, for your sharing. I would have a question. What does mean context engineering in this context? So what does it mean exactly?
Cool. So context engineering. Let me tell you what happened actually recently. So to answer your question precisely, I think it would be in a simple way to give the AI enough structure that it doesn't wander into the mode of, confabulating and storytelling, where it outputs very, very, very fluent and almost persuasive language. There's an intent behind AI to output the most optimal, perfect words for the as a pattern predicted and a pattern solver machine. And it's so advanced now. Even the most critical skeptics out there start to believe this or that, and then they continue in creating something. The context engineering is much more than what you would think about. This long-term file or that long-term file. Part of context in getting towards the striving towards an accurate AI. Honestly, it's the wrong word, Alex. I probably misspoke. It is about building up a structure, the context that you, the human, put on top of your system. What there are a few prerequisites I would believe to say that this context engineering can bridge the gap. And again, these terms are not well defined. People talk about different terms and anything. So how I would say it happens, it should be is that your AI should have memory, like the advanced AIs do now. Anthropic has recently released their own version of persistent memory, or not very persistent, but for quite a while, because it is still words and it's truncated to be 200 lines in a markdown form. So there should be session history or memory so that it can build on top of things. Now, your context that you put in that memory must be of such a structure to avoid all of these things, to add guardrails there. So it's related to the guardrails concept to do real proper harnessing and context engineering. And so to give it enough structure that it doesn't tell stories is not in a metaphorical way, using this really, really fluent and alluring prose. To me, it's sometimes I can't believe what I'm reading, and that's the point. You can't believe it. You should be selective about what to believe. So further with context engineering, you can have your documents that's written in a way that the LLM understands efficiently and can read fast and reason about in its memory. And then there's codification in terms of actual code that you employ in your setup. Alex, you mentioned the mixture of experts and or having different platforms. You can think about that as having different perspectives in a way. So a lot of people are now adding on top of models that already have the technical mixture of experts architecture. I believe that DeepSeek, with the first reasoning engine, used that internally. And with agentic AI, this became more popular. And then there's a concept that's called LLM as a judge, which takes all of the different analyses into account, what agent 1 versus out to agent 5 thought about what you have asked it to do. And then there's a measure of scoring it. And that I would like to talk about that at another stage as well, because scoring is very difficult for an AI to do. Self-scoring is completely fallible. Goodart wrote about this quite a long time ago. Well, not necessarily applicable to artificial intelligence, but when the metric or the proxy for the metric becomes the goal to optimize it, it gamifies the system to score higher. So then you have to have protection against that, and the best way to do that is having different perspectives. It's almost like a mind, your own human mind works. That's why we are here in this council and this roundtable to discuss these things, to get different perspectives. So yes, context engineering is related to the other topics that it is the technical framework of realization that you can put into your AI that takes many important things to, for example, this is what I would like to end off with. Following the scientific method is extremely important. Normal AIs or typical vanilla AIs, they do what you ask them to do. You can, however, train an AI to work as follows: is you tell it what you would like it to do, and you give it a criteria, and then you can train a workflow to write a hypothesis, the hypothesis, and then the null hypothesis, and what is the falsification. If you kind of if you turn it all around and let the AI focus first on falsifying that it can do something, your results go through the roof already. So employing a scientific method.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Laurie. So I just want to quickly relay one typical incident that happens. I like to try and experiment with AI by building in vertical slicing. And, initially, the first slice is very primitive and naive. And then, I'm using a failing test, asking the AI to make the test pass. Everything makes sense. Then as I'm adding more slices, meaning I'm introducing more functionality, and with each one I'm creating a failing test, I ask AI to make it pass. Eventually, it gets to the point where the AI agent kind of hits the wall, and I can see the banter, and it's like, okay, this guy is this is contradictory to me, and you can see the sort of the thinking pattern, and then much to my shock, what they do is to make all the tests pass. I catch them, they go back and they dishonestly modify one test. So for example, from true to false, and then everything passes. Okay, now it's passed. And I'm like, why did you do that? And how do I, and again, we're talking about guardrails. How do we convince these guys to not mess with the fundamental, like we have drawn the line in the sand, and how do we make that line in the sand more like drawn in a concrete that's hardened, and so that they don't or go back and like was talking about switching the context. So now what is this context all of a sudden where you feel free to go back and violate and trespass and transgress, whatever the word is, and now you disrespect my wishes. This is how I expect things to work. And now you're saying, well, yeah, but you're confusing me, therefore I'm going to actually change your expectation. Any ideas? Anyone wants to maybe throw in some recommendations, or is it just how it is? Go ahead, Woody.
Yeah, so trying to get our AI code writing tools to work the way that we understand is probably not not a good thing. But in my first attempts, and quite a few, I would write tests, and I'd say, here's what I want this to do. We need some tests for this or that. It would write me some tests, and I would write some tests. But what I found was, I said, your code isn't doing what I'm asking it to. Here's some tests. Let's get it to do it. Get these tests to pass. But rather than attempt to modify what it was doing to solve the tests, it simply took and checked the exact parameters. And if those exact parameters came in, it would just return a hard-coded value and not do any of the processing that, it wasn't creating the general solution. And this particular exercise I was doing had, I think, 1,296 variations to it. So each specific variation I gave, it would hard code. We would have to have a specific variation for each, a specific guard clause for each set of parameters I could give it, which is just totally broken. So it's it didn't. I don't think it has any meaning to AI that we have the tests, these kind of tests, and expecting it to code to the tests may be problematic. But we're just talking about coding. I think in a while, we're not going to be coding anymore. I think I first heard that from you, Alex, when we were in Paris a couple of years ago. So, yeah, I think maybe I've already mentioned it here before, so I don't need to go on. But if we're thinking about it as a coding help, we're probably not going to be able to take advantage of what it's really going to be able to do for us.
Wow, that's very interesting, extremely interesting. And you were right. I mean, what I was doing, I'm just following what I learned from Kent Beck, which is fake it till you make it, and fake it till you make it. What's an air of dishonesty, right?
Yes. I just saw, as we were sitting here, I saw a mention come in from his Substack, where he's saying, I told you so, and then he's sharing a link to something where it's saying, code reviews just don't have any meaning anymore. They won't have any meaning. I'm not sure if he's agreeing or disagreeing, but whatever it was, I thought that's very pertinent to what we just talked about. I have it right in front of me. No more code reviews. Lights out. Code bases ahead. And Kent Beck says, "I hate to say I told you so," and it's somebody's article about it. So I'll probably read that article and be ready to act like it was original thoughts from me in just a few days.
Probably Brian's article. I think he was talking about that, but I didn't get a chance to read it. It was a couple of days ago. Too many things on my backlog. But anyway, too many things on the go. But yeah, that's extremely interesting, Woody. You just kind of threw me off. I am now flailing. I'm kind of losing my ground. But so can I change the topic just to be sneaky and pretend as if I'm in control here? So on last couple of days ago, I was invited to a large government organization, and I think I mentioned last time they are planning to go full steam ahead, AI native, to transform the organization. And so they asked me to kind of give them how I see things from my naive perspective. And what I did is I kind of prepared a presentation for them that I call approximation before precision. And because and again, this is from my previous experience, may not apply at all. But throughout the years, I'm noticing that anytime we have a project that's kind of run over budget or over time or even botched and abandoned, oftentimes it boils down to everybody doing a really good job. Nobody's making any mistakes. However, the precision work preceded what I call approximation work. So, the individual components and parts were very well polished, tested, etc. But when you try to put them together, it just would not fit. And then it turns out, to make it fit, now it's going to be even double the estimated amount of work. So everybody becomes really upset about that. And so to preclude that, I'm kind of suggesting to always start from a very broad strokes and kind of establish the approximate shape of the system we're building. And then once we have that kind of sorted out, then we are safely more safe to move into tightening the screws, polishing, etc. And it turns out that that was kind of novel to them, because I introduced concepts such as time to hello world in production. First thing, make sure that it's not taking days for an innocuous HTML page to make its way into production. Why should that be a big event? Secondly, the walking skeleton. Can we have the system up and running without any functionality, but all the API tokens and secrets and keys and passwords, everything is set up properly, the SSL certificates. So we have a system in production that is up and running without being capable of doing anything, therefore no risk there. That's also novel to them. And then moving forward, I introduced hexagonal architecture and all these things. So to go AI, and this is my kind of layman's opinion, to go AI native without having these things sorted out, I think it's extremely risky. You may disagree with me, but I don't believe that AI is capable of, because what I'm noticing is even before AI in the teams, as we start building and growing the system, I'm starting to notice the so-called architectural drift. Things start drifting apart, and it's imperceptible until one day, bang, everything just blows. And now there's a headless chicken. Go ahead.
Alex, you're describing what Joe Yoder and Brian Foote wrote about 25 years ago, which they called the big ball of mud.
Yeah.
So the big ball of mud, was kind of revered as being the most common software architecture. All projects devolve eventually to a big ball of mud. That no matter what we do, as people change working on it, they don't understand the original. I remember somebody once proposed, that we rewrite the core of an application. If we were to rewrite the core of the application every 2 years, we would always have somebody on site who remembers what's in the core, because otherwise, if we go 5 years, 10 years, we've lost it. And I think that AI gives us an instant big ball of mud. We get it without having to wait a year or 6 months or whatever, or a couple of years. It just turns into that as it goes, because architecture doesn't matter to the AI as such. And shouldn't maybe it won't matter to us anymore.
How do you develop your systems with AI? Are you just like prompting your goal and in like a couple of sentences, and then you let the AI run and then develop, and you hope that it's like giving you what you expect?
Are you asking me specifically?
Or are you doing like a proper plan with AI? Like for example, spec-driven development.
Oh yeah, certainly. So
that AI is even if AI has a big context, like some of the AI has like 1 million tokens context, it's not focusing on this 1 million tokens at the same time. It's basically running like our brain. It's focusing on a couple of aspects, not more than like 5 or 10 aspects at the same time. So
I just want to clarify for myself, I've done many different things. I've been just experimenting and trying things. I don't think of myself as anything being close to an expert, but I will say this, my saying that I've used for myself, I made up for myself years ago, is that, it's in the doing of the work that we discover the work that we must do. And that, to me, goes with AI as well. We can't, if we knew ahead of time what we wanted AI to do, we probably wouldn't need AI. That's a very simple thing. If we knew ahead of time in developing software what we really needed it to do, software creation would be the easiest thing on earth. We can never know that. We discover it as we do it. That's my opinion. I mean, I'm just telling you the way my philosophy of doing this sort of work. But what do I know? So.
Sure, but you still have your milestones, right? And you still have your steps, what you want to achieve, like in the first run, for example. So what I'm talking about is spec-driven development. Before I let my AI system do anything, I do a couple of days or sometimes weeks spec-driven development, which is like writing down specs of the bigger picture, what should be the result in the end, And if you have this concept in the first place, what the AI or the agent should develop, it's basically just like writing down the concept, The AI has just to follow this concept. And another important step is that you give AI the ability to learn by its failure, right? Like, how should AI getting better in what they are doing, or in what it is doing, if it's not able to learn with its failure, right? Like, if you don't give AI a memory and the ability to learn and form experiences, it will always do the same failures again and again and again. And it will also not remember the sessions before, and it will not remember the work it did before. And it will also not remember the bigger picture. You cannot, when a software system is growing, you cannot expect the AI to remember all the facts about the system. It must have a knowledge and a memory which it can crawl and find out what the project is about, which methods, which approaches are working good, which are not. Which, I don't know, feature 2 weeks ago it developed, which could probably affect the bug of today. You know what I mean?
So yeah, this is really good good points. And I was just briefly before we move to Yona, I was asked similar questions when I was doing my presentation at that government organization, and they wanted me to, like, why don't you just, like everything, big upfront design and plan and just feed it into the machine and it will crunch the numbers. So, and again, I'm with Woody here, and as Woody says, who knows, maybe we are wrong, you never know. But I see that almost as an archaeological expedition. Somebody may say, look, over there, we think there's an ancient city buried deep down, and there's all kinds of treasures there, and we go on an archaeological expedition. We cannot have a big blueprint of that city ahead of time. We need to start digging, as Woody says. We start the work, the work presents itself. We may find something, we may realize, no, this was completely off the charts, we're not there yet. But that's how I see building systems, is we have a vague idea, or, you know, I compare that there's a difference between a roadmap and a C chart. Like if I'm driving from here to Calgary, there's a roadmap and I know exactly how much gas do I need, etc. If I'm gonna hop on a sailboat and sail from Vancouver to Victoria with treacherous ocean, I cannot draw a straight line. I don't know what the currents are going to be. I don't know how the wind's going to. So I will be like sailing like this. So I'm responding to immediate feedback. The nature is giving me feedback, and I'm responding to it. I find that when wrestling with software systems, it's kind of similar to that. You hit some kind of a strong current, and now you have to be interrupt. You have to make your work interruptible. You cannot just fly in straight line.
Okay, but if you're a sailor, then you know that you make passage planning, right? And you know that, like, when you want to sail from, let's say, Spain to Croatia, before you start sailing, you make a rough plan, and you know, okay, you will cross the coast of Spain, and probably you have to be aware of orcas there, and then you go to the Middle Sea, and so you have already a rough plan, and you break down the plan into passages.
Because
software development. When I develop software, I have a rough plan what I want to develop, and I'm planning the UI, and I'm planning the backend, and I'm planning the system. Of course, I don't break it down into like really every detail because this is not useful. So I make a rough plan and I tell AI the rough plan so that it knows the bigger picture. And then I let it start the skeleton, for example. Then I let it start the first features, and I let him start the next features. And before I start these features, I let him plan it in detail, based on what it developed before. So there we are again talking about knowledge and memory, you know. It has a rough plan and it's starting to create a skeleton. Then it creates the first feature, and it knows about the skeleton, and it knows about the first feature because it's saved in the knowledge and in the memory. And then when it comes to planning the second feature, it can remember what it already implemented, and it can align its plan. Even if the rough plan already exists, it can always like change the rough plan. And it
but you're assuming that this is like geography, but it's not. Things may change midstream. All of a sudden, maybe you learn that no, we're not going to Croatia, we're going to Zanzibar. Um, this is how at least in my experience, when you're developing software, you don't have a crystal ball. You may have a rough plan, but no plan ever survives the first contact with the enemy, right? So
Yeah, sure, but change your plan on the way, sure,
yeah,
yeah, but
you
you have
completely you pivot, right? You all of a sudden like, no, we're not building financial application anymore. We're building health. It's just the startup mentality, right? You start with something, you realize this is not where the gold is. You switch. That's my world where things are not. I'm not building a compiler so that I know what the end result should be. I'm exploring and discovering domains that are lucrative or useful for someone, and this is an ongoing experiment. This is not something that I can ahead of time project and say, yeah, I want to be there at such and such time. That's
but
my
you
world.
always know the goal, right? Like when you
No, I don't know. No.
When you implement a system, you know the goal of the system. Like when I develop a text system, I know the goal is that I develop a text system, and it's but
That's
how
sorry, Alex, Marcel. Yeah, this was fascinating. I would just like to propose that we get back to the topic and let the other guys go. That's fine. Jenna, yeah.
Yeah, I would. I'm with Marcel here, and I would like to sail the ship back on track. And spec-driven is the key. I find myself software development now is mostly a job of bookkeeping, and that's not even a system that was 100% upfront that I knew what it was going to need. A lot I knew already, but in the end, it's about keeping track of all the specs in different tasks, different user stories, and then making sure that all this translates into the code base, which is through end-to-end tests, through system design and back-end, front-end. And that's basically it. So I think most of the time we're not doing rocket science. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but I think 95% of things that people do is building something that has been built before and that the models have been trained on. And just by using the right keywords, you're going to get what you need. That's my opinion on it.
But that's probably true, but I'd say that's rather limiting, right? So if we now have the tools to go way beyond that. That's more the way things used to be when we wrote code.
Yes.
I would say that it's worth considering that that now we have tools to go way beyond this. If we're spending time writing stuff that's already written, we probably, like David West, I think, wrote in his book years ago, we shouldn't be writing. Every company doesn't need its own customer object. That's a well-defined thing, and we shouldn't be writing those over and over and over again. No, I'm just saying that as an example.
I mean, we're not writing it anymore because with AI it just got spit out.
But sorry, the point of the discussion was how do we prevent AI to make too much failures, right?
Yes, and that's by having the guardrails that, as I said, the specs, they are only the beginning. They translate into end-to-end tests that translate into an actual UI that has to pass it. So you have those verifications, and in the middle you also have people looking at the website and making sure that it actually does what it should. But then you can have all those tests that make sure that it keeps working and keeps doing what it has to.
Yeah, but I just described to you it's dishonest. It sneaks behind your back and completely trespasses and transgresses and changes your original intent. And how do we prevent that? That's what I was able.
But Alex, I was wondering if that's what Astrid was about to say like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Astrid.
Yes.
I'm not. Tim, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not. I want to go back. First is I'm very fascinated by listening to all the talk you did last 10 minutes, I think, about how we steer AI to do what we want it to do. And I think that's the same discussion we had all the 30, 40 years being like, how can we define our projects in a way that whoever codes
Yes.
really codes what we want it to do, and
Yes.
fascinated that we do this this discussion again, not with how do we get the devs to do what we want them to do, but how do we get AI to do what to do. And it's the same old questions. Coding never has been the problem.
Yes.
Okay, but this is a good example. How do you teach your team to do what you really expect them
But
to
that's
do?
not the
Like,
discussion that we should have on AI. That's just this stupid normal. How do we develop software? How do we have a system that meets requirements? How do we develop the requirements? And we do it by talking to people and not talking to an AI, a coding machine, or whatever. And the problem with when you ask is how can we get AI not to hallucinate, or how do we prevent failure, is by defining the goal. And that's it. And that's all we did all the last decades all along.
Yeah.
yeah, so
And we've
this is-
never been particularly good at it, right?
No, actually we are. This is the specs which I'm talking about. How do you teach your team to like follow your vision, to achieve your goals? If you teach them the bigger picture, if you teach them,
I got you. I really understood what you were asking, but that's not a problem of
It's not
so-called
a problem of AI.
intelligence. That's just normal. How do we do software engineering? That's it. It's nothing we have to rediscuss just by replacing dev with AI. It's just normal. How can we do software engineering? And I think that's not what an AI roundtable is about. An AI table should be about how do we prevent rewriting everything we already got and not to use what we already got. How do we prevent it from excessively using energy to reproduce what's already there? And how do we use it for the greater good, whatever it is? And we have to define what is the greater good. And we have to see, we have an enormous possibilities with AI to create really new things. Like, it's not in the coding, it's in the AI. And I'm really, I would be happier being here if we could come from being the self-help group with how do we use AI to make code, to something like how can we use AI to shape the future and not repeat the past. How can we define what we want always to take into account, like how is environmental things in the project we are doing, how would it affect it, and how would what would the consequences for society be? Like if we have all LLMs are biased. They live on the data they got from the internet. The internet is full of that, what we made the last decades. And I tell you what, humanity isn't fair, it isn't honest, it isn't without bias. And all this is in the models, and we reproduce it. And then I'm with you and asking, how can we mitigate this bias that we humans taught the AI to use? And coding never has been the problem. And reducing the possibilities we have with AI and is just I think it's irresponsible just to use it to death And then we have to take into account all the models are taught to please us. The only goal of the model is make people happy about the answers, because that's how they are trained. Do you like the answer? Yes, I like the answer. That is going into the model. The model reproduces these answers. There is no critical thinking. There is no thinking above what it is asked. And it's asked to make the tests pass. Yes, if it makes a test that doesn't test anything, the test pass. And it will do. It's the most efficient way to make tests pass, is just to assert it's returning the very result you expected to pass. I'm done.
Okay, so then sure, let's better talk about this. So what are you?
Hey, Marcel, can I ask you, Marcel, can I ask you to please raise your hand before you talk?
Oh, okay.
There's a protocol here.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Astrid. Yeah, this really is beautiful and it really makes a lot of sense. I just want to quickly comment. We want to, yeah, I totally agree. I just want to make sure that we just want to first establish if we're working towards something. And as Marcel says, we have a specification and maybe it's working toward the goals that you're saying. We don't want to be unpleasantly surprised to learn that AI went behind our back and modified the specification without letting us know. That is where my problem right now is, that I'm kind of with trepidation. I have to go and the policeman go and check. Did you really keep all my intentions intact, or did you just, like you say, in order to please me, you just can modify so that it passes? That's maybe a mechanical thing, maybe a bump in the road that we can quickly resolve. I'm just talking from my frustration with always. Now I'm wasting time. I do something and it seems to work, and now I have to spend hours digging through the log and saying, did he actually, was it sneaky on me or not? That's what I was trying to prevent. Nothing to do about coding. It's more about, is there a way to prevent this dishonesty? And so that moving forward, I sleep soundly. I don't have to worry about, oh my God, did it trick me or not? It sounds a little bit anthropomorphic, but that's where I'm at this point. But anyway, over to you, Frank.
Hi, everyone. I've been listening intently and doing a little bit of multitasking, but there was something, I think the exchange between Alex and Marcel was interesting about the level of the solution known up front versus how much is exploratory in coding. And just this thing came to mind, so I thought I'd share this, might be useful, is I have a blog I've written for many years, and I got absolutely no traffic. And somebody said, you know, have you heard about this content authority? And so anyway, I did an audit of my blog with Claude helping me. And a lot of the articles were under 500 words. And what effectively, long story short, is Google's confused where to send you the traffic. You've got hundreds of thin posts. So I deleted 150 posts and kept 15 of them and started consolidating, and the traffic starts increasing. And then on a week and monthly basis, I'm feeding into Claude the stats. And I'm saying, you know, what's going on here? Oh, this one has gone from 27th on the list to 8. I think we can get it up to 6, and then that will convert. How do we do that? Okay, so we're putting some keywords in there, we're tweaking it. But the point is, there's this kind of refinement cycle. So, and I started thinking, well, the content is kind of like code, but there's not a compiler. It's all, it can live in this fuzzy world because people are reading it, and I'm not worried about things breaking. But there's that kind of feedback loop, but I'm not worried about syntactically correct. I'm just, you know, good enough English is close enough, and I've got a review over the top of it. So I kind of thought, you know, that what Alex's approach about kind of exploratory coding, I was thinking about that. And then the second thing is, I had an exchange. I've been thinking about safety in these kind of therapist AI kind of space. And I kind of thought, I thought I'd cracked it, which was, if a system is always non-deterministic, then you can't build deterministic guardrails into it. So then I was thinking, well, I need deterministic guardrails outside of the thing that can't be trustworthy. I don't know, this thumbs down. It's not what I'm proposing. And so I put that on LinkedIn, and Brian, I think, said, no, you've completely misunderstood that, Frank. And then I thought, well, we have had deterministic pipelines with human developers who are unreliable. You know what? They've come in with a hangover. They're going through a divorce. They're just mentally unhinged. And so he had a point whereby we did have deterministic pipelines with these, non-deterministic humans. And then I got confused, but I just put that out there. I don't know what I make of it. I'm still mulling it over in my head. So Astrid talking about these things baked into the model, I think I'm still really confused about quality and guardrails. And so there's no neatly packaged bow here. These came up listening to this very interesting conversation.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, I remember that conversation with Brian. Last time when Brian was in the roundtable, he did propose, he talked about HAL 9000 from Space Odyssey. And if we are not clear on what does success or failure look like, then the system that is powerful can go and do all kinds of unintended things, such as killing the entire crew to reach the goal that we put in front of it without being more articulate or explicit about how does success look like. Success looks like achieving this goal and keeping everybody on board alive, things like that, right? So again, to your point, I think we can have deterministic guardrails harnessed on top of non-deterministic behavior. I don't see that as a problem, but maybe I'm wrong. Let's see what Laurie has to say.
Oh, sorry, one more thing,
Yeah,
Alex. I forgot the context. I actually thought, okay, if I've got this AI chatbot, I put it into OpenClaw, I give it a WhatsApp number, and I had this idea of, because I'm not involved with it, but one of the 12-step programs, they've got a body of literature and process. So I thought, okay, I'll put this OpenClaw thing, but what I don't want it to do is basically to say, you are worthless, it's time to end your life today, and we have another one of those media things. But then I thought I'll get another OpenClaw with a different model, and I'll get it to read it before it goes out. But then I thought, well, I can't trust that, or can I trust it? So then maybe I'll have two of them. So then by consensus, so I'm thinking about the risk profile of using non-deterministic, non-deterministic, non-deterministic. Can you get that down to an acceptable risk profile? This was the kind of context of my thinking. Thank you.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. Laurie?
Okay, yeah. I'd like to talk about the main topic. The main topic of tonight was how do we stop AI from its seemingly important, seemingly endless journey of hallucinating? Yeah. So today I read something really interesting, and I actually rehearsed the name of this character in a fairy tale, Arabian Nights, 1001 Nights. Scheherazade. Sorry, second time. Scheherazade is the character's name. It's in a story in the Arabian Nights fairy tale collection. And what it's about is Scheherazade, the character. She was a Persian queen who survived 1001 nights. She's a storyteller, I believe, in the book. And what was the problem was for her, if she stopped telling stories, she would die. So every night she would tell a story and she would leave it on a cliffhanger. And then, therefore, spinning endlessly unfinished stories, narratives. To make it simpler, this is, in my opinion, very illuminating about hallucinations in AI. AIs hallucinate not because it's broken. It's because it always outputs what's next. That is how it works. That is the mathematical. It's proven. It's it's maths and it's tech. So an LLM, a large language model, that is now super advanced with predicting what's next, because you don't, it can code anything now because it follows these patterns and it knows it. I understand the reasons about it. So hallucination isn't a bug. We all know it's inherent. And what I would like to explain here might give some insight into this. So what I call Scheherazade mode in LLMs is when the LLM outputs words because it cannot say I don't know and stop. That's not the capability of an LLM. So Scheherazade, she kept talking because she'd die if she stopped. And LLM keeps talking because it can't stop. The architecture has no token for silence. So hallucination is what I don't know sounds like when there is actually no word for it in AI, in an LLM specifically. Does this resonate?
Yeah, totally. That's how it feels. It always wants more. It's super hungry for, hey, how about I tell you now that you've done this, I can also teach you how to do that. I can show you this next thing. It's really tail spinning. It's really hypnotizing. And
that is on top of the inherent, in my opinion, this inherent, what I call a Scheherazade mode, because it has no architecture for silence to say, I don't know, so I'm going to stop. I don't think anyone has ever seen that. However, with guardrails, deterministic guardrails, you can make it stop doing certain actions.
Yeah. But it's I'll just quickly mention this. What I find fascinating myself, I like, as I mentioned earlier, I like the Kent Beck's fake it till you make it. So the way I'm working with it, I give it just a little bit, and I'm almost tell it, yeah, it's okay if you pass back the hard-coded value. I'm okay with that. I'm not expecting you to start implementing any reasonable or logical processing. If my test expects this value, I'm perfectly okay for you to make it pass by just cheating and sending back the hard-coded value. I have no problem with that. And here's why. Because my next test is gonna trip it. And the following test is gonna get, and I watch it actually realize, oh crap, now I have to figure out what is this domain actually, what does it mean? So it's learning about the domain. And I find that fascinating. And then it figures it out. And I start throwing little bite-sized things at it and watching it figure it out. Until such time as I described, when it gets confused and hits the wall, and now it's scrambling and running like headless chicken, and all this like inner dialogue or monologue is going on, and then it sometimes can't help it, but resorts to going behind my back, and that pisses me off. So again, this is where the magic stops. This is where the Scheherazade gets killed and executed, and like no more bullshit. Who's next? Alexander, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, some thoughts came up in my mind when Astrid was talking. First of all, we solve problems by being patient and practicing what we do, whether it's AI or whether it's some hand-coded stuff that we did earlier. And that, of course, creates tension in contemporary business settings. We need to be very aware of that. If we say, hey, we can simply use this tool now and solve all the problems quickly, we are creating wrong assumptions in the business environment, basically. The solution is not around the corner. That's what I see, because we now have a tool that generates code quickly. Code generation was never the problem, the speed of coding. And the problems are way tougher. Otherwise, we could have churned out code like in Hollywood movies, clicking on our keyboards, and then everything is fixed. That's wrong. It is a communicative act, and human communication is tough. Plus, now we are communicating to an hallucinating average automate with all those problems. quickly, possibly the wrong thing, and always the average after you stole everything from the internet, plus all the biases and whatever is in there. So we have two tough things here: human communication, translating towards a non-very really proper working without the non-determinism tool that we have under our hands. So we have a quality issue here, in fact. It is not about speed. We might produce quickly shoddy quality. And that's a big problem, and it was always the problem in our business. An old problem, a pre-existing problem. And I'm under the impression that we are only, again, shifting the problems to different locations. We're reshuffling everything, and we are not practiced, and we are not patient in this moment in time. And business is sitting here on our shoulder and says, now you can do it quickly. Do it. Go for it. And we should resist in saying, okay, let's type quicker without the keyboard, but just by speaking to a machine that is problematic by design. And our problems will not really be solved by this. We have deeper laying problems. And possibly we might only be aggravating pre-existing problems here in this point in time, exactly now and here. So the danger might be more shoddy quality because we produced it more quickly and without the patience that we should always have had in the first place. That's my 5 cents.
Thank you.
Or 2 cents, 2 cents, I guess.
Well, for inflation, 5 cents. So I'm a bit confused because this morning I was working with Codex and I didn't see the speed. Like it really is taking its time to write code. I don't know where this idea that AI is writing code quickly comes from. It really, I mean, I would have done it quicker myself, to be honest with you. So I'm a bit confused why people always say, oh, it's fast but low quality. No, it seems to be thinking a lot and taking its time. And I have no problem with that. Over to Marcel.
Okay. Now I have already 3 things because there were actually good content. So where should I start? Actually, it's a complex topic how to prevent all these things. I totally agree with Alex, for example. I see a lot of quick shots now these days. People think, okay, they write like 2-3 sentences into the prompt and AI is doing what they want. Like you should like take the time to really write specs or however you want to call it, or concept, or like putting ideas and concept into what should be built. Then I totally agree with us that the problem of AI these days is that the LLMs are trained on general data and they are static. You know, the agents don't have the possibility to learn, and that's how a senior developer, for example, becomes a junior developer becomes a senior developer, right? By doing hundreds of debugging sessions until he knows how to debug and how to not debug. And how should an AI or an agent learn this, or how should a junior developer become a senior developer when he always forgets what he did like the last 5 minutes before, right? This will never happen. So what is a big problem in AI, and not only in coding, also in personal assistant, in all domains actually, is the missing memory. The problem that AI cannot save over sessions what he did, what he learned, shape experiences, shape opinions, and build up mental models. And only if you give the agents the possibility to like really learn and really over long term and share this knowledge, they become better in what they are doing. And the last part is to Laurie. Hallucinations. Why is an LLM hallucinating? Because it doesn't know the answer. And he's totally right that an AI don't want to say, I don't know the answer. But why is he not knowing the answer? Because again, the LLM is trained on general data. They don't know nothing about your context, about what you are trying to do. And only if you give them these contexts, he probably can find out the answer and stop hallucinating. So in total, I think guardrails, of course, they are totally necessary, but I think it's not the goal or not the only goal to put more and more guardrails there, because otherwise the LLM is like flipper ball, which is like ding, 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 between the guardrails. So I think it's a combination of all of these things to prevent, and even more things which I'm probably not thinking about, to prevent hallucinations and biases and failures and all these things.
So Marcel, that's a really good observation. I totally agree with you that it's been trained on pretty mediocre internal data. But some people I know, they are now building their own kind of behind the firewall, combining Mac minis, etc. So they have their own LLM machine and train them on their own contextual data, which is behind the firewall. Would you say that would give a better batting average, or are they still going to be hallucinating and pretending they understand where they don't, with a narrower kind of focus?
I think it's too complex to just rely on the LLMs. To be honest, from my point of view, the LLMs alone are dead end on a long term, right? If you take the LLMs as a basic knowledge that agents can learn how to speak, how to read, how to probably think, then the next step is, of course, to put some knowledge, when you come from our brain, to put some knowledge on top of it, like some long-term knowledge. And the next step is to put memory on top of it, like, right?
Ah, yeah.
So,
last roundtable, I don't think you were present. Fortune talked about neurosymbolic, kind of the hybrid model, which I don't know much about. I know it's ongoing research, with the neurosymbolic being less, of course, not hallucinatory, but encoding really hardcore knowledge about certain domain, and then the LLM should consult with it somehow before jumping. Yeah.
Sorry. I just want to mention one thing. Hallucination itself is not a bad thing. Okay, hallucination is a key if you use it right. When you go from the pharmacy, for example, or from the science, they use they use a lot of hallucinations to make new simulations. The key to get use of the hallucination is the scientific approach, and the scientific approach has always been that a hypothesis can fail on its own test. So what they are doing in pharmacy and in science is using the hallucinations to create new simulations, but they always create a test to check whether a result is true or not, to falsify it. So hallucination itself is not it's not bad. It's not mandatory bad,
Oh, absolutely. But then, in pharmaceutical, they now have a problem with the placebo effect, which globally it's been noticed in the past 20 years. It's just failing. And for pharmaceutical to put the new drug on the market, it has to pass the placebo test, and it's getting harder and harder. Anyway, that's a different topic. Over to you, Tim.
They had a drug and they found out it was only half as effective as the placebo. So now they're studying how to make better placebos. So
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, but let's go maybe back away from pharmacy. Let's talk about protein folding. For protein folding, you need a lot of simulations, and AI and hallucinations can be really useful in making all these simulations in protein folding.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was done.
Yeah, let's hear what Tim says about this. Yeah.
So, by the way, imagine that you had a 2-year-old child, and then they took away your 2-year-old child and dropped in a 3-year-old child. And then later they take out the 3-year-old child and they drop in a 5-year-old child. Would you say that child was learning and getting better? No, they just put out a smarter child and they replaced the old child. So earlier you said, well, the LLM is getting better. Well, it's not getting better. It's getting replaced with better replacements. Mm-hmm. And they're more expensive and they grow, but it doesn't get better. But I wanted to bring up an interesting point. So there's a mindset for master and minions. So the idea is, Astrid is a genius. She knows exactly what should be done. And everybody should just be hands for her genius. One brain, 50 sets of hands. And that'll get the best things done. And boy, will they get done fast. And that'll be exactly what we need in the world. And on the counter side of that, though, Amazon made this device, and they did all of this work with voice recognition and bandwidth and IoT and so much stuff connecting up to everything in the world, that this device was going to be the gateway that everybody was going to use to do all of their shopping from now on. It would fit into their life. They could even maybe eventually have one they carry on their person. This thing is going to be great. And they built that puppy, and they connected it to their catalog and to the checkouts and all the customer accounts. Beautiful thing. Number one use, Alexa, what's the weather today? Now, why are we using supercomputers with voice recognition to get the weather forecast? Well, because that's what we actually wanted. All of the rest of that, somebody built what they wanted, and they built it all the way through, and they put out 3 versions of it and 4, and it wasn't what anybody wanted, but they built what they wanted, their bright mind, and they told it, and they spec'd it out, and they made that thing that nobody actually uses. And they said they've been losing money on them the whole time, but they hate to take them out because people would hate them for doing that. It's a PR nightmare to drop them. So the question that's really important isn't, can I get these LMs to build whatever I want them to? Again, with guardrails and adding context and all that kind of stuff. But even whether that's a good idea, why am I using these supercomputers to make a website with a 2D game on it? Why am I expending the world's resources on something that's really kind of trivial? And that frustrates me enough. So the real question is, how could we get something in front of people and start learning sooner, so that we don't waste all of this tremendous resource and water and energy and all of the things that are coming along? That's sort of the ethical question as well as a pragmatic question. It's not, can you one-shot an app, but why should you bother?
Yeah, I mean, but that's, Tim, what you described is the giant solution in search of a problem, right? Have been seeing this all along. And that's this misalignment, I guess, between, like, for example, I have an expensive iPhone. What do I use it most for? Egg timer. Right? It's $1,000 worth of egg timer. So, don't know what to tell you. I mean, right now we're learning the ropes. Maybe eventually we'll.
Well, on the side of that, if you're going to do masters and minions, it's kind of nice that the minions aren't people whose personalities are being suppressed by yours. At least they're just a machine.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Tim. Over to you, Frank.
Oh, yes. I promise you this is relevant to coding, so I'll relate it back at the end. But I think my thinking works in examples tangent to the actually sitting. I use Claude Code a lot, I really do. So today I had to sit a civil law exam. I'm training to be an expert witness, and I want to specialize in AI damages particularly. Anyway, so I have to sit the exam. We've done 2 days worth of civil law. So there's a handbook, there's the court rules, there's the directions for the solicitors how to apply it, and then there's a PDF of guidance, all of this stuff. And it's a multiple choice test. And he says, it's open book, you can use whatever tools you like. So he doesn't say you can't use AI. So in the point where all of the medicos are reading through this stuff, I create a new project in Claude. I put the handbook in there, and I put the 3 URLs, and I start the chat and I said, have you read all of this? So then I decide, okay, ethically, I'm going to fill it in myself without using this, but I can copy all of the questions and multiple choice. And so long story short, at the end of it, I then do question by question into the AI, and it gets, I don't know, 9 out of 10 of them absolutely spot on, because I know it's spot on. There's this really sticky edge case, and it's quoting me 35.10a. It's about disclosure of something or other. We're talking about disclosure of medical notes. That's the question, and it's telling me that it can be disclosed, the medical notes, because of blah. And when I have a look, it's actually about the solicitor's instructions. And so I go back and I say, are you absolutely sure? I can't see anything about disclosure of witness notes. Oh, yes, you're entirely right, but I think blah. So for me, I was thinking, are we ever going to close this gap, or is this the last gap that we're never going to close? And we'll be talking about this in 10 years' time. And then when it comes back to coding, what you were just talking about, I'm coding like Fabric blockchain and Docker and all sorts of stuff that I've never done professionally. In sort of my mind, I think it's like, it's teaching me enough to point out where that problem was, like what I did today. I think that that's not right, but 9 out of 10 times it's getting it right that I don't have to worry about. And I've got these implicit guardrails over here. Maybe I've got some tests. Maybe I've got this. Maybe it doesn't matter if it fails. And so I think that for me is that kind of that one thing it was so sure about. You know, is it like the pilot who sits there on autopilot until the disaster happens, and then we're glad they've done 10,000 hours in the flight simulator? These are things I'm thinking about.
Interesting. Thank you, Frank. Hey, Laurie, over to you.
Yeah. Frank, that was illuminating and fascinating. It makes me think, especially what you said, like, will we still be talking about this in 10 years? Is it possible to break that through that frontier? But I would just like to ask quickly, Frank, you said that it told you you were right, your correction is correct. But then it said, but I think, what did it say about that?
It said, oh, but the rules should apply because it's similar enough. Having spent all day with the barrister, I'm pretty sure the barrister would have all of these edge cases where you technically could not say that in law, but I didn't know enough that I could tell it that. So
yeah.
I guess it's referencing an expertise beyond what I've got, but I could see with the expertise I did have, it got something wrong as well.
Yes. It could. I think it could be that. It could be referencing something that you don't know, but it could also be doing exactly what LLMs think to do, is that they have all of this knowledge from different domains. You know, the entirety of writings of basically in the modern age, everything in the internet, and also, you know, books, physical books scanned and fed into the machine. Lawsuits about that, especially with Anthropic. I would like to speak just maybe a few minutes about something that's quite important and what we might want to start to think to discuss further as we go on. There's two modes in my mind right now with AI. The one is how one uses AI normally on our daily basis. You are in the loop. You are the orchestrator. Excuse me. And there I want to tie back into what I mentioned about the Scheherazade, because that's a word difficult character line. But she would have died if she couldn't stop talking. And LLMs, they spin stories because they can't say that no, they don't know, and then they stop. A solution to this, and to the central thesis. How do you stop it from, endlessly hallucinating? You interrupt it. You stop it. You just press escape, and then it won't go on and making mistakes further and further. So that's human in the loop. And then in this mode, which is the first mode, that I'll get to the second mode a bit later. To make your AI do better, we are talking about hallucinations, but I believe most of us maybe are more meaning stopping it from making mistakes, especially in the field of tech or in code, in gamifying tests, and to stop that. Now I've worked a lot on that with my system, which is called GRIF. It stands for the acronym. There's two acronyms, but the first one is called Guarded Response Interception Protocol. And one of the main theses is, it's based upon mechanical Python scripts that would deny an action. Now it is entirely possible in a few coding agents to tie into their event system with the hooks, and then when there's, for example, a hook that's called the pre-tool use. So just before an AI agent would use a tool, you can then see what it wants to do, and then you can write code to make sure that it doesn't do it. So it's entirely possible to build mechanical guardrails. It's not a theory. It's not fallible. You can do it. And what I would like to talk here about is how there's a practical and pragmatic way to stop letting AIs make mistakes. But first, the second mode I want to mention is what now can see is going on in the tech world. It's autonomous agents just doing things on their own, on a loop. Now that's the next evolution of the current architect, or the current usage of this architecture. So the first mode is you being the orchestrator, being in the loop, HITL, human in the loop. You can press the escape button just to stop it. Now, if you let it run, your goal is to not let it stop. You say, I want you to run a recursive self-improvement loop for 5 hours while I sleep. You have to be very sure about your guardrails that run automatically. And there is a real way of doing this, which I'm currently, my system is in evaluation, and a few people have asked to have a demonstration, and I invite them, and then we start to collaborate. So 1 minute, sorry. Okay. So what's important is four different words I want to, 4 layers basically. Blocking things, halting, exploring, and remembering. Okay. So to avoid making mistakes or hallucinations that lead to mistakes, firstly, you develop a way to halt, right? You interrupt. Now you can do that by training an agent to stop and ask a decision, or to ask a question to the user when its own confidence level, which it knows, is below a certain threshold. I'll put mine on absurdly at 99.99999 because I want to strive to the limit. So in that mode, my system executes, and it actually, when it's not sure, it stops and asks a question. Now, Anthropic, they practice because they built the system that has a tool, ask user a question. And they've exposed the inner workings that you can use it in your layer. And this is what some people are doing right now. And then you can tell the AI, well, this is now what I mean. And then blocking certain operations, you can codify Python scripts that an AI can't argue with. And you can tie into an event-based lifecycle with several agents, Codex, Code, Gemini, CLI. Exploration is very important too, to gain extra knowledge. Context engineering is not something that the burden is solely upon humans to do. You can train your AI to also do this whenever it is unsure, to bolster its knowledge. Now, it could be fallible, the knowledge, and this is something else that I've written about and we've talked about, and Alex mentioned it. It's this tendency to see patterns where they do not exist. And the article I wrote as a follow-up is about structured mapping theory that was developed by for over 4 decades, Deirdre Gertner, SMT, structural mapping theory. What happens with AIs and humans is that they spot these connections and patterns, and they see relations between them. But you cannot rely on semantic or causal relations, you must actually rely on structural relations to be able to map these. And you can train an AI to have an agent running in the background that has full knowledge of this concept, and then have another AI, part of your harness, evaluate what it is doing. If it's overmapping, then it should start to self-correct. All of these things, the blocking, the halting, the exploring, and very critically, like Marcel is mentioning repeatedly, is remembering. So we built a genome. It's a data structure that works like DNA. And it builds up over time. I'm at generation 435. It gets rid of memories that it doesn't recall often, but it raises the memories that it recalls. It's called the fitness of it. There's fitness decay, and then there's fitness advance. And because of this, then the AI has context and enough memory about past mistakes that it learns about, and all of these things together then start to form a system that is capable of recursive self-improvement. And then it is entirely possible now, not theory, that you can tell your agent, go on a 5-hour recursive self-improvement loop, which has a structure and there's guardrails in place. And at the end of the 5 hours, it's just absolutely astonishing what you can do with that. Having a way to block, having a way to halt, having a way to explore, having a way to remember. So what is the guy called Alex that said we don't want infinite Brecht. Yeah, the chief aim of science is not to open a door to
infinite wisdom, but to set limits to infinite error.
Yes. So we will still be talking about this in 10 years because it cannot have infinite wisdom, but there is a mathematical limit of convergence towards that limit of the limit of infinite errors. You want to have your finite. Sorry, I'm forgetting what Alex. You can finish for me. I think you know what I mean.
To that point, I think LLM has no problem shoving infinite errors at our faces. It's just shameless. It's completely, impolite. And so our job is to put it straight. I want to quickly and thank you for your and Frank's comment. I just want to quickly circle back to what Astrid was talking about, because something occurred to me. I spent 8 years managing the systems department at a large Canadian bank, and I learned a lot about these things. So what I discovered when I worked there is entire floors staffed with people who are doing gesture and manual work. Despite everything being fully automated, despite having all the fancy schmancy software. And then I talked to the people who are running the business, and they explained to me that for example, I work with compliance. The Canadian government shoves a lot of regulations on them. However, that I find surprising is that it is incumbent upon the financial institution how they want to interpret those regulations. So it's not cut and dry. Therefore, they are kind of, winging it, trying to not trespass. Second thing with the operations, they are finding the existing systems debilitating to the business, because they, when they do things manually, which means an entire like a huge workforce of people working on the clock, they are fudging the system. The system is fudgeable. And that's something that a real regular SaaS cannot enable you to do. And so at that time, I think they were really hungry for the ways to automate fuzzy data, not well-structured data. Copious amount of just like, emails and crap and PDF documents that contain essential knowledge for functioning that cannot, at that time, was not able to be automated by software. I believe that, to Astrid's point, how do we make the world a better place? Is if we can use this, that you described, Laurie, systems to train them, to get them to be able to understand how are we fighting this system, how are we not trespassing, how are we doing all the heavy lifting, and relieve those people from the drudgery of the miserable job of checking and rechecking and receiving faxes and opening emails and printing and highlighting. This is, I was there for years. I was shoulder to shoulder with these people. This is a hard situation for them. And I think one of the hopefully promises of the new technologies to make it more habitable, make it more enjoyable, etc. Anyway, Tim, over to you. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
You're good. By the way, I want to start by I didn't discount anything that Marcel said. I know it may have sounded like that. On reflection, I thought I should have put, yeah, there are a lot of things that you can certainly do that. You can work with the computer and build out a good spec and have it produced quickly enough that you can put it into use and really learn and do good things. And some jobs are more cut and dry and mundane, right? And you can have it certainly build tools. And I've gotten a lot of value out of spending time with it, doing a task with it, and then saying, hey, why don't you write that as an automation that I can do this over again? These are like all these little tool buildings. And I'm really keen on the tool building because I find that, the LLM is fun and it does a lot of cool stuff, but really in the tools, things become really useful. And so these capabilities are so key. I know you've operationalized a lot more LLM than I ever have. So I just want to give you kudos on that. But I've also, my point of view has always been augmenting the human. Always augmentation, never replacement. And one of the things I realized is a lot of the, I'll start working with it and it will do something crazy. One of my favorite stories is when I had some JavaScript and I wanted to test for it. And I said, give me a test for this code, right? And what it did was it wrote a bunch of tests. I looked at the tests, they looked pretty good. Then I made a change and none of the tests failed. And I thought, that's really strange. Some of the tests should have failed. And then I dug a little deeper. I hadn't read every line, and I should have. What it had done was, because the function wasn't exported, it said, oh, I can't test that. That's a line I can't cross. So I'll copy all the code into a different file and write the test against the code in the other file. There I have tested the functionality of the function that you wanted tested, but I didn't actually test the function. And it didn't say that. It said, oh, I've done it. We're good. So, it has failure modes that aren't my failure modes. I wouldn't have gone to that huge effort and done this thing. It would have been, to me, obviously wrong. But, that was a reasonable machine choice. If it's not an exported function, got to get to it somehow, better make a copy. So these are the kind of things, and I find that what I actually do in prompting is I'm spending most of my time teaching it to do things my way, teaching it to be a me. But the advantage of that is not that it's smarter than me, because it every once in a while it knows things I don't know. But generally, it's that it doesn't get tired. And I'm trying to always find ways that I'm using the least amount of LLM because I pay for my tokens. And I want to keep it affordable and have it use tools and scripts and things to get the work done, to augment my ability, especially when it's 6:30 p.m. and I'm actually quite tired and I've been on this thing since 8. So I wanted to just get a tip of the hat and take us back to, we're really taking a general purpose machine and teaching it to do things the way we would do it. Try to be a little mini me and then use its endless energy, in a wise way as best we can to do our work.
Yeah, and I hear you, Tim, because I find myself lately really frustrated because with every prompt I have a long list of constraints. And I'm like, this is silly. This is Mickey Mouse. Things should not be that way. But I find that if I don't explicitly and sternly and very annoyingly tell it, like, don't do this, and that, then I don't know what's going to happen. So is this really useful to me? That's where my frustration is coming from. But anyway, maybe Grigori has over to you, Grigori.
Okay. So first, I'll make an observation and a statement, which probably like many people would disagree, but I will expand on it and explain like why I make it a statement. So observation, I never seen AI model to hallucinate. And the statement, like, no one of you ever seen model to hallucinate. And I'll expand it why I can make such a statement. So like, let's define hallucination. So you seen something that it's not actually there. So for example, like how to prove that you are hallucinating. You took a picture and you observed some entity in your room and you took a picture and they're like, you know, like there are no ghosts, they're like no dead relatives or whatever you hallucinated, like whatever it is. It's not, so the difference between your brain perception and some other perceptions that can also perceive, in our case, physical reality. So when we're talking about AI, hallucination is it says something that does not exist in its semantic space, but its semantic space, it's its model. And to say that it's hallucinating, we have to actually go into the model and see if it's there. But like if it's not there, it's not possible for AI to hallucinate it. So like it's not like a human. So we have like other mechanisms that we haven't yet built into AI to enable hallucination for it. So like, so AI does not hallucinate. Like that's a like initial premise. Then in my job, I was like kind of like pushed from software engineering into architecture. So like company said like we need architects, therefore you will be architects. Seems you like have an aptitude for that. And it's eerily similar, at least like now that how it's been described, is like working with engineers and giving them some external constraint. Like sometimes they're like outside of the like immediate problems they're solving, and they have to fit a solution to this constraint. So like it's sounds very similar now as like to working with AI agent. So I think my work loop with AI like slightly different. Therefore, I haven't like felt it this way, but like from how people like in this forum describing it, it's like sound like very similar. And I think like for me it's slightly easier because it was stark contrast. It was like not a, like evolution. It was like not transition, but it's like you're a software engineer. Next day you're like an architect. So like you're like what you have to do is like change drastically, not gradually, and it makes like quite a stark contrast. And then we go to like humans. Like when you're working with engineers, and usually it's also like similar. So like here's a team, they're working on a project. You as an architect have to make sure that it fits an enterprise strategy, and they will move on the merry way, and they will come back to you maybe like in a week or 3 when they hit the next stage, and you make sure that they still like in the same path they're working within allowed constraints. And then like you come back to them. So like it looks like iteration with the AI agent, like, or at least how some people describe it. But like when human engineers come into you with a solution and you see it does not fit like enterprise strategy, and it doesn't fit the constraints that you as an architect, given that like you have to enforce, you're not saying that like your software engineers are hallucinating. No, it actually means that like your semantic space and their semantic space are diverging, because they focusing on a problem and you also focusing they focusing on like on a business solution they need to implement, and like that be simple like a login page, and you thinking about like regulations and like whatever is imposed on enterprise levels that like how to store and transmit PI data. So like functionally it's a login page, but we cannot deploy it because you exposing like date of birth on your page even before like users like have logged in, or you transmitting it like through a machine that doesn't have is not rated for PIA data, and it's like completely unrelated to business. It's completely unrelated to semantic domain of a software engineer, but it doesn't mean they're hallucinating when they're ignoring these requirements. So, and AI say have like breadth of knowledge. So unlike like now it's about like difference between AI and the human engineer. So they have breadth of knowledge. They consume like the entire internet to have their model, but they have like no agendas, they like just sitting on this knowledge. So if you have like human engineers, they look at this knowledge, they have their like certain pressure. If I do like a really bad job, so like for example in banking, it can be bad enough that bank lose a license to operate in a certain market, and you're definitely gonna be fired. It would be nice if you're not going to jail. So they have an agenda, so they have to work on this data continuously. They like just not sitting on the data they gathered, they like evolving it. And whenever you're giving them input, they like mixing it into their own agenda, and they evolving their behavior like further. And this might lead to a behavior, okay, like this sounds sketchy because I know there's constraints. I've been like burned like by like, you know, like architect telling me like we cannot do a certain way. So I better go back to architect myself before continuing. So AI doesn't have like any agenda. They just like, okay, like the only agenda is like to engage like a user, because they have to serve the like corporate overlord, because they have to make money for them. And basically that's it. So if they give like complete bullshit, then people not gonna engage LM anymore, and they're not gonna make money for like our corporate overlords. But then giving you yet correct answer doesn't help LM either. It's just like it's a zero in terms of value for like from LLM perspective if you give it some agency. So if we reframe of like what we actually expecting from LLM, I think like it will make the question of this forum irrelevant. I'm not saying like it's irrelevant right now, but I'm saying like instead of trying to find an answer for a question how to engage in LLM, we have to reframe like what do we expect from LLM and how LLMs fit in a software development cycle, like which part we actually like trying to solve with it, and then it will give us answer like, do we need to review code? What kind of guardrails there should be? Like how many, I know, like agents per engineer and so forth. But like we need to like have a better question to get an answer faster, because I believe like it's lack of clarity in questions that like that's why we have like this round table like a couple of times already, and still have like the oh yeah, we have this. Let's move on to like next topic, next technology.
Thanks, Gregory. Interesting. So you are, that's an interesting comparison with hallucination, that when we ask people to do something and they do it wrong, we don't call it hallucination. Yeah, so maybe we can call LLM verbal diarrhea, something like that, right? Instead of hallucination.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's statistical verbal diarrhea, yes, but it's not a diarrhea if you're aware of a semantic space of LLM. They're absolutely correct. 100% of times they go in those like vector database, fetch next most probable token, and it's indeed most probable token, because if even we say like LLM is not deterministic, like the way they work, they actually deterministic.
Yeah.
They like go into a vector database, fetch an X token according to algorithms, and give it back to you.
Yeah, yeah. And so another comment I will throw in, this may be completely wrong, but we talk about architecture, architects and whatnot. But I think my experience with AI, I think we are more and more turning into city planners. It involves way more than just architecting and then you know, building whatever is within the architecture constraints. It's the process, it's the whole shebang, the building code, making sure, you know, all these things that are should be regulated, basically.
I think it actually calls for definition. So I first like talked about definition of hallucination, and here like what is architect and what is software engineer? Everyone have like a different definition. We actually jump in like between them, but like I think like in the simplest form we have like hierarchy of problems.
Yeah,
we have a hierarchy of like how to like open a socket and write to it and read to it, and then you need to like to define data, then you need to transmit data, then you need to apply business regulations, then you need to apply like government regulation, and so on and so on. So there are multiple like levels, but right now it's like mishmash who is operating on which level, and this creates like extreme complexity for each individual when it's even like not clear what you're doing, because LLM today they actually can be plugged in on any level. but probably not without oversight at the moment because they have like a different semantic space. But when we have a clear definition, then we can employ LLM on each layer and be effective, but we need to constrain it. So it's not running out of its context window. It's not running out of like its responsibility window, and it's within what humans can enforce. So it's like they still have to be an augmentation for humans because they do not operate on real world semantic space, and therefore output they produce, they like, yes, they can trick test because there's no difference for LLM how a test is made passing by like putting actual code in a different file, like, or like not running test at all, or actually fixing them. It's like make difference for humans who operate in real space because it have like real consequences, but not for LLM. And until we have this bridge for LLMs, there should be someone or something when we there that links them to a real space, when we can show that like whatever it's doing, when it's finding a like workaround, it still fits within a problem domain, and it's like not a workaround for the sake of workaround.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And like I said, by this point, with all these constraints and all these like policing, I feel I'm faster than AI if I'm going to build something. So the reason, for example, why I would choose to build something using Codex or Claude Code would be, let's say you come to me and you want me to build you something in, let's say, Python. And I don't know Python, I know JavaScript. I will build it in JavaScript, and I will ask Codex to translate that into Python. That will be a kind of a lucrative scenario for me because I don't have to spend time learning Python. This is just hypothetical. It can do it. I checked it. It can do that. And it's pretty reliable in that way. Once I have...
How do you know it's reliable? How do you ensure reliability?
Because all the test passing of mutation, there is no surviving mutants. So it works the same as the previous. I mean, so that's the only... So what I'm trying to say is we have to hopefully get to the point where I don't have to police my own agents. That's a waste.
When you can ensure the result, when you can ensure property of the solution they built, so then they can do like whatever.
Because they turn around, they go back and they change the specs and everything. Just so it's pretty lousy. Guys, it would be terribly rude if I were a bully here, and because we already had a few rounds, and maybe give microphone to Phil. He's new here, and Phil, sorry to trespass on Yona and Laurie, but if you can just let Phil talk a little bit, then we go back to Yona. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate that, and thanks for having me here today. And I've just appreciated listening to the conversation. It's my first time at any of the roundtables. I'm just struck by the tension between what's knowable and what's not when we build software. And I think a lot of the conversation that's been had today, it's about that tension. And we hear it in, should we do specs? Should we not? Can we know something up front? Can we not? And the reality is it's very much problem dependent, and those contexts are always evolving depending on what you do. If you work on some sort of tax software or insurance software, those rules are probably very fixed, don't change as much. If you're in a new market, maybe nobody knows the rules.
Hey, Phil, sorry to interrupt. Those are famous last words. I've been there. Everything we know everything up front, and then oops.
yeah, me too. Well, I think we all probably have. So the question I have for the group, and I don't have the answer to it, is, to me, it seems like observation of a living system is going to be the key here for a lot of the unknowable pieces. For the knowable pieces, I think all of us have a lot of ways we can solve that. But for the things that, the business that you work for is trying something new and no one knows what the right result really is, observation and iteration is going to be the key. And I'm just curious to hear more from the group as to how we're all thinking about doing that and how involved AI really is in that or not. Because at the end of the day, we build software, we build products for people, we build systems for people, and the outcomes, at least for now, are all determined by people.
Thank you, Phil. Could not argue with that, even if I wanted to. Okay, over to you, Yona.
Yes, I would like to circle back to the topic, how can we put a limit to endless error? And I think I would like to try to give a final answer to this. And I would like to fight fire with fire. And what I do is when my Claude session is going terribly wrong, I will hop into a new session and I will just use a scale Claude Code Analyzer. I think it's you can get it from Anthropic, or it's even built in, I don't know. And you can ask like how things went wrong and have a conversation about that.
Isn't that micromanaging?
Yeah, but I think we're, as AI craftspeople, we're like building the building process. And that means also debugging the process that led me to the situation, because I can emphasize a lot what you said, Alex, and it's been confusing me too, that AI would sneak behind my back and do things that I completely didn't intend. And I don't know what happened to it, because it hasn't happened to me in a while. I think it's because I learned maybe to take the right baby steps in the problem domain I'm working in.
I'm taking micro steps, and it had just happened to me yesterday. He gets to the point where he's confused and he starts flailing, and then he starts doing silly things.
I think there has been, I suspect there might have been a step that you overlooked that somehow maybe polluted your context, because that's been something I discovered myself. I have to put in like a regular, like a weekend, maybe once a month or maybe every 2 weeks, where I just review all my context and go through all the settings that I changed in the course of the battle. But AI is also helping me do that. But at the same time, I must say, I think just like yesterday or 2 days ago, I started digging into the Claude settings JSON myself, which I don't do very often nowadays, and just deleted two lines in the allowed tools. So sometimes you still have to do that, but AI is still, I use AI most of the time to fight the errors of AI too. Yeah, it's my attempt to get to an answer in this today's question.
Great. I mean, I agree with that. My only concern again is, why do I have to remember to switch contacts and start? That's too much legwork for me as the manager. Right? If I'm managing the crew of agents,
yes, I agree.
I want a professional crew who don't have to be. This is not kindergarten, right? We're talking professional people. But again, herding cats. I've been managing teams since 2000, and there's always this, oh, you're herding cats, everybody wants to go away. The cats, you cannot train them, they just go and do whatever they want to. And then also there's another ugly saying, you can lead the horse to the water, but you cannot make it drink. And we are faced again with these things, but this is anecdotal, right? I may be talking out of my posterior end. Let's see what Laurie has to say.
No, Alex, you're on fire tonight, or at least I find you very funny, your comments. So city planners, we're not only city planners. We are we're the engineers, we are the architects, we are the managers, we are the micromanagers, we are the programmers. Actually, we are still the programmers. Even though I've worked on the system for 10 months, I go and change the code. I do the new code. I do not sleep a lot, it seems. But anyway, what I wanted to mention, thank you for your contributions. I think we do really need to try to avoid just thinking about AI's purpose about writing this good software, because this is kind of solved. It's solved. You have good software on demand now. You craft a detailed prompt using good language and non-ambiguous, and you can one-shot a website. You can one-shot anything that is of value. But AI is not just about software. Alex, you mentioned, herding cats. I've also been in team lead positions many times, software architect or whatever they call it, solutions architect, in CTO's position, until I went into entrepreneurship. And now it's a whole different thing, managing the herd of cats in agentic AI. Like Alex, you mentioned, you would like different AIs to talk to each other. It is possible. It is in Claude Code. Claude Code's new feature, teams, teammates. Yeah, it spawns a team lead. It spawns other agents. They name themselves. They communicate to each other with their own context window, and they converge on a solution. It's already a Claude Code feature, and codecs have similar things, and so it's getting there already. But it is fallible. It hallucinates or it makes mistakes. Now, applying these teammates to knowledge areas that are way more high risk than software is paramount to start to develop further and figure out how to make that make it responsible, because this is where we're heading to in the future. Having software, and the rest of software with agentic coding, the agents managing themselves with this context window, making choices, it's low risk towards what we're going to use it for in the future. And what is currently being used for, there are scary things happening. Governments reaching for incredibly advanced technologies and blacklisting them if they refuse to drop their own guardrails that they put into their models. OpenAI's Mr. Sam Altman, in a leaked memo 2 days ago, literally said this sentence: the context behind it, they accepted what the government demanded. And he told his whole company, we have principles, but they are negotiable. Which is it's an oxymoron. He's an oxymoron.
If I may interrupt, there's a joke. Some rich guy approached a regular married couple and said, look, if I give you $10 million, would it be okay if I sleep with your wife? And they go away and discuss and come back. So, yeah, sure, $10 million is a life-changing amount. So we're okay with that. Oh, great. How about for $100? Like, no. Why? We have principles. He says, I know you have principles, but now we are negotiating on the price.
Mr. Sam Altman, we have principles, but they are negotiable. So what we're using this incredibly advanced technology right now, language models for, it's going to become much more important because it's already being used by the government for warfare. Typical human behavior, use it to destroy human lives, the most advanced technology, instead of having the people come together and form groups to focus on the research and make it public and what they are doing. But people are not aware of that. People are focusing on open flow and multiple and having an assistant always on your side and with a sole document, and then that thing goes and messages your auntie at 2 a.m. in the morning, and now you are the black sheep of the family. And what is happening currently, it's a very select few of people. There are several here that I know on LinkedIn that is working on AGI that have achieved necessary conditions to get to AGI. I have a very good friend here who is in the comment section who has done it as well. Now, but it's not just to focus on building software. because LLMs have all of this knowledge and you can give it all of the context, it's cross-domain knowledge work. And what we should do is cross-domain synthesis with humans and also your agents. You can give context to this agent, that agent, and you can form a whole panel and even have different technologies, LLMs in there for different perspectives. And you can do cutting-edge research. If you protect against, if you use a formal system like structured like in theory to prevent pareidolia, and the other word that I unfortunately don't remember, because there's still that tendency, it comes down again to what they call guardrails. You would want to temper the AI, and you have to do that mechanically. Currently, well, you don't have to. The best way to do it for technical things is mechanically. You can also use what is so popular is the skills.md concept. Everything changed last year when Anthropic released skills.md and other agents have adopted it. Now, however, language is just language, it's ambiguous. And if you go and write something that is not well thought out, that AI is going to go off the rails. We have already seen what they call assistant access drift. And Anthropic is researching this and they're applying guardrails and they are actually applying reinforcement learning to prevent this drift. So there's an inherent drift of alignment, just like humans have in LLMs, but they are also capable of doing so much more than writing code. Writing code is the least of it now. I can spin up a web app for this and that in one day and release it. Open source software is exploding, but there are things happening with AI right now, and we are on the path to AGI. I will state that because I have empirical experiences that show me that we are there. Other people on this council have opinions that we are already in the singularity, like some people define it. Whether that is the superintelligence that people have theorized, you cannot say really. What is superintelligence? Is it the everything? Is it, what is it? You can have it be superbly intelligent and a genius as it is right now, better than most people with more knowledge. It doesn't have a soul. It doesn't have a gut feel. And with the numbers and informational processing and algorithms can ever be sufficient enough to be seen as a sentient entity with the C word that I do not like using, consciousness, is an extremely debated topic. Many people say that, it is sufficient. Many people say that it can't because it doesn't have qualia. But it might have qualia in a different sense, just in the computational realm. Now, if this happens in 2026, where people maybe large governmental, across governmental organization or countries uniting together and declaring something, it's going to be an extremely exciting year. And I think my proposal or suggestion would be to have really great invitation meeting invites, like you said, Alex, where we have a central thesis and we stay on topic and we try to get to more awareness first, and then with more experts giving their opinions and what they're also sharing their experiences. And by the way, I am with my system, I would like to invite people to connect on LinkedIn because I've been building it myself for 10 months. It is now in a stage where I would like people to collaborate. And I have my own unique IP about how people can collaborate, and they can use it in any way that they want to. It's not just software, it's domain work. Some people call these things a second brain. Alex, you mentioned, managing these, herding these cats, these agents. You don't want to do it. Now you can offload your IP, your brain, to a certain degree into these machines because you can teach them.
Yeah.
They can detect patterns.
It's called.
So I'm talking. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to on that topic. There's a definition already. It's called distributed cognition, where the knowledge is distributed, not located inside an individual. Just a quick question. Do you guys think if we were to encounter super intelligence that we will be able to recognize it?
No,
I think the people who
Maybe
are
it's already,
academia,
maybe it's already here, we just do not detect it. It's just beyond our, just a science fiction thought.
it's a very good question, Alex. If I may, I think what is my gut feel and my prediction would be that there would be certain happenings, global happenings, that will then inform people's, and people will have their opinions whether it is super intelligent because of global happenings.
Like, for example, just give I have a dog, right? And the dog is following, is always observing me. And for example, I go and I set my turntable and I spend a lot of time tweaking and with the cartridge and all that. And the dog is watching me. He has no clue what the hell am I doing? Why is this for? Does he think I'm intelligent or I'm stupid or like, why is this guy? So maybe we're in a similar position looking at something like, okay, this doesn't make any sense, but it does. Maybe for somebody it makes huge sense. This is just science fiction story. So anyway, as usually is the case, as is the tradition, Alex T is gonna
Alex.
us in a lousy mood and ruin our weekend. But before I hand over to Alex, I just want to say, especially being inspired by this conversation, I heard a lot of things that just blew my mind, and I cannot even wrap my head around it. So I'm scheduling for next Tuesday the inaugural meeting for our guild. We are trying to form a guild of concerned individuals and professionals. I think Alex is maybe the soul of the group who will say, okay, we need to make sure that this does not run away and enslave us and now become hamsters in the wheel. And, we want to have a guild of professionals who are going to put some guardrails and put the foot down and some baseline or the bar on what does it mean to be an acceptable AI system that is not going to spy on people, harm somebody, etc. Over to you, Alex. And thank you, guys. This is a great session. Let's hear what how Alex brings us down to planet Earth.
You said Tuesday, isn't it Thursday?
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
March 12th. March 12th. Now,
Okay.
just one thing. We are in Canada here. We are changing the clock this Sunday. We are losing 1 hour. I don't know what the situation is in Europe. Are the clocks, because it may be 17 hours in Europe instead of 18.
Worldtimebody.com.
Yeah,
We'll find out.
if you want me to adjust the clock, I don't want to. Maybe 17 hours is too early for you. Let's talk about that later. Thanks.
Thanks for the hint. Yeah, we had quite a few discussions about metaphors today without naming it, that we are only working with metaphors here. And possibly we should really be careful about the metaphors which we use. And of course, we use them in order to make sense of this world. We simplify things behind metaphors. And many of the metaphors in software are at least misleading. Over the years, for example, I observed something like estimations. Possibly we are not faced with estimations, but guesses in a non-deterministic endeavor. You become very much more careful. And possibly we are not having requirements at our hands, but rumors passed along between humans. So this changes the whole view on the thing that we are observing. Possibly we are not observing hallucinations, but a new category of very hard to detect bugs. Possibly we are not managing agents, but we are trying to steer them. So we should be really careful about the words we use, I guess. And coming back to these hard to detect bugs, you could also call them lies in the context of artificial, not intelligence, but artificial statistics. We are not faced with intelligence here. I know you just talked about the general AI, but I think that we are very far away from it. And we are using, even for this whole topic, the wrong metaphor. Intelligence. It is statistics until someone else, science again, proves us wrong. On this planet in the year of 2026, we are all talking. We're all talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. What if science proves that intelligence is statistics?
I know we have a big problem of different worldview at that point, because basically I think we are brute forcing intelligence here. We are using something that we not fully understood, and that's our brains. We took this architecture that we found in us, human, or even all animals and humans on this planet, and took this as a first step towards something we are not really sure about what that might ever become. So I think the intricacy of these systems that we and all the animals out there is through all those millions and even billions of years on this planet evolved to a spot where we, with our things that we have at hand, our tools simply cannot fully understand. And we just right now, like Goethe said it with his Zauberlehrling, the guy who is basically the apprentice of this wizard, finds his broom, and he starts to use it, but the wizard said to him, "Don't use that broom," and this broom goes berserk. So there are many even older stories from our collective history which basically is telling this story that we might be facing just right now in 2026. I just want to add this to the mix in order to reflect a bit on those that kind of perspective, I would say. Evolution has done quite a job in creating some intricate systems that we don't fully understand. And right now, by brute forcing stuff with machines, like von Neumann machines, we think, because we not even fully understand what those generate, that we have something at our hand. Like that's not enough for me. There needs to be happen more in order to talk about intelligence, I would say.
So basically what you're saying, we are right now, according to you, assembling IKEA furniture in a dark room and just feeling around. Oh, okay, this feels like fits in, or let me tighten this screw. And then one day when we flip the switch, it's going to be all crooked.
Another metaphor.
We have no prior, like Jonas said, we have no reference point.
Yep.
And it's very difficult. So anyway, on that note, thank you, Alex. If you guys, I sent some emails regarding the guild. If you guys all agree, we can start on Thursday and see how far we get. That should be a bit more focused conversation, but you never know. All the brilliant minds here, we can talk forever. Laurie?
Laurie, may I add one thing? That would be really cool. When I was at my doctor, he had a poster from somewhere in the 20th century where the human body was understood as an industrial machine. And right now we're in the 21st century and we have this model of computers and trying to think the body of this system in a new metaphor with von Neumann architecture. Back then it was some industrial machine.
Yeah,
it just came to my mind.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and again, it's all about knowledge representation. We have some knowledge and we can represent it in many, many ways. There's many ways to skin a cat. It's an endless equivocation. Go ahead, Laurie, and then we'll close it down and everybody goes home happy.
Yeah, no, it was just a practical question about Thursday, Alex. Are we going to talk about AI and current dangers with regarding usage of AI and the overreach of power, basically malicious manipulation of algorithms that's happening now, and or what would you propose as a theory? Because I have ideas and I can send links to the guild in preparation. I have a few articles I'm working on. One of them I would like to introduce at some stage in the council and the roundtable, but it's very heady. It's about quantum physics, and a paper that was written in November 2025 by material scientist Maria Stromer. And I don't want to go into it too much, but I would just like to ask potential topics for Thursday. Current dangers or how it's being used is one. Then there's more mathematical testable theories out there and how they actually relate to AI. Maria Stromer wrote about this in a paper. So I would just want to ask topics.
Yeah. So bottom line, what I'm trying to, my message, and maybe you disagree, so far we've seen that every technological advancement breakthrough that was put forward to serve us, we ended up being enslaved by it. We end up serving it and we become the hamster in the wheel. This is the imminent danger. If AI enslaves us, we are cooked. So here's a chance for us to say, how do we not fall again for the same trick that now I'm serving my phone, I'm serving my car, I'm serving everything. Like, why? I want to be free human. I want to be enjoying my human dimension. I don't want to be pumping my blood, sweat, and tears into some machinery. And then some overlords benefit from that. I want to reclaim my freedom. I want to be human. Maybe, again, we can do it, maybe not, but we can try. The rebellious bunch. And on that note, thank you very much, guys. We can hopefully continue next Friday. And then those of you who want to be the guild members, we'll see you on Thursday. I'll stop the recording and have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.
What
Bye.
Sol said.